There are lives that seem to unfold outside the ordinary rhythm of time. Lives shaped by forces both seen and unseen, touched by brilliance and shadow in equal measure. Some lives move slowly, like ancient rivers, carrying with them the weight of destiny. Others spark like lightning, brief, blinding, and impossible to ignore. The life of Nikola Tesla belongs to both categories. It moves quietly and it explodes. It drifts through darkness, and it illuminates the world. To understand Tesla, we must return to a summer night in 1856, in the small mountain village of Smiljan, in what is now Croatia. A storm was rolling across the valley, a violent storm filled with a kind of electricity that seemed alive. Thunder echoed off the cliffs. Lightning split the sky into white corridors of light. And inside a modest stone house, a woman named Georgina Tesla was giving birth. The midwife, watching the flashes illuminate the room, whispered that the newborn would be a child of the storm, a child of darkness. But Georgina, exhausted yet serene, looked at her son and replied softly, "No. He will be a child of light." And in a strange, poetic way, both prophecies were true. Smiljan was a quiet place, surrounded by forests and mountains that seemed to guard the village from the rest of the world. Life moved slowly there. Days were shaped by the rhythm of work, prayer, and family. Nikola grew up in a household that was humble in wealth but rich in thought. His father, Milutin Tesla, was an Orthodox priest, a man of strict discipline and powerful intellect. His mother, Georgina, though unable to read or write, was extraordinarily gifted. She invented small tools to make housework easier. She had a memory so sharp she could recite entire epics without a single mistake. Tesla would later say that his mother was the true origin of his inventive mind. He remembered watching her hands as she crafted new devices, observing how she approached each problem with calm creativity. She never rushed. She never forced solutions. She simply saw possibilities where others saw obstacles. Inside their home, books filled the shelves. Discussions about philosophy, faith, and the natural world flowed through the evenings. Nikola absorbed everything quietly, listening, thinking, imagining. But it was his older brother, Dane, who was considered the true genius of the family. He was handsome, athletic, talented, and adored. Nikola admired him deeply. And then, when Nikola was just 5 years old, Dane died in a tragic accident involving a horse. The details were blurred by grief, and Nikola rarely spoke of them. Some believe he witnessed the accident. What matters is this: the loss carved a deep silence inside him, a silence that would stay for life. After his brother's death, Nikola changed. He became inward, introspective, drawn to the worlds inside his own mind. He began experiencing strange visual flashes, sudden bursts of light that filled his vision, often accompanied by vivid images of scenes, objects, and machines. At first, these episodes frightened him. But over time, he learned to control them. He discovered that he could create entire devices in his imagination, assemble them, rotate them, test them, and correct them, all without ever touching a tool. This ability would become one of his greatest gifts, and one of his greatest burdens. In school, Nikola's unusual mind quickly became apparent. He could perform complex calculations instantly, without writing anything down. He remembered diagrams, entire pages of text, and long sequences of numbers with perfect clarity. Yet he also developed compulsions, ritualistic behaviors that shaped his daily life. He avoided physical contact. He disliked round objects, especially pearls. He washed his hands compulsively. He walked around buildings exactly 3 times before entering. The number 3 became almost sacred to him, a pattern that made the world feel orderly. These habits were not quirks, they were necessities. They gave structure to a mind that processed information relentlessly, almost painfully. When the Tesla family moved to the nearby city of Gospic, Nikola attended a more advanced school. It was there that his fascination with electricity began to awaken. His physics teacher demonstrated electrical devices: Crookes tubes, coils, simple generators. For most students, these were interesting curiosities. For Nikola, they were revelations. He stared at the glowing tubes, sensing that behind the faint blue light was a principle he could almost, but not yet fully, grasp. He wanted to know not just how things worked, but why the universe allowed them to work that way. His father wanted him to become a priest. Nikola wanted to become an engineer. The disagreement grew into a quiet tension between them. Then, at 17, Nikola fell ill with cholera. The illness lasted 9 months. Doctors believed he would not survive. In a rare moment of emotion, Nikola told his father that he might recover if he were allowed to study engineering. Faced with the possible loss of another son, Milutin agreed. "You will go to the best engineering school in the world," he promised. And Tesla did recover. Slowly, painfully, but with a new fire inside him. He had escaped death, and he carried with him a sense of purpose that felt almost cosmic. Soon after, he left home to pursue the studies that would change the course of his life, and the course of history. Tesla entered the Austrian Polytechnic in Graz with a kind of hunger that few around him understood. He studied obsessively, often from dawn until long past midnight, consuming every book, every lecture, every formula he encountered. His professors were astonished. Some praised him openly, others worried about the intensity burning behind his eyes. One of the most defining moments of Tesla's education came during a demonstration of the Graham dynamo. The machine, a sophisticated device for its time, produced sparks at its brushes, small contacts that transferred electric current. The professor explained that these sparks were inevitable, a natural consequence of the design. But Tesla saw something else. He raised his hand and suggested that the brushes could be removed entirely. The professor dismissed the idea immediately, calling it impossible, an attempt to defy the very laws of physics. Tesla stayed silent, but inside him, a door had opened. He knew the professor was wrong. He didn't know the solution yet, but he could feel it. The idea stayed with him, quietly forming, rearranging itself in the corners of his imagination. Despite his brilliance, Tesla's time in Graz ended abruptly. Financial troubles, emotional strain, and a growing distance from his family pulled him away from the university. He drifted for a time, eventually finding work in Budapest as a draftsman. It was a difficult period, one filled with long hours, poor living conditions, and a sense that his talents were being wasted. Yet even in despair, Tesla's mind kept working. The problem of the brushless motor haunted him. He turned it over again and again, like a puzzle missing a single piece. Then, one February afternoon in 1882, it happened. Tesla was walking through the city park with a friend, reciting Goethe's Faust, which he knew by heart. As the sun lowered, something shifted inside him, something clicked. He stopped mid-sentence, drew a shape into the dust with his walking stick, and exclaimed that he had solved it. He had seen it, clearly, completely, as though the motor were turning in front of him. The rotating magnetic field. It was the principle that would make alternating current possible. The idea that would light the world. Tesla left Budapest shortly after, carrying the revelation inside him like a secret flame. He moved to Paris, where he worked for the Continental Edison Company. His talent quickly became clear. He repaired complex electrical systems with ease, solved problems in minutes that had puzzled others for days, and demonstrated an instinct for machines that bordered on supernatural. His supervisor wrote a letter to Thomas Edison in New York, saying, "I know 2 great men. You are one. The other is this young man." And so, in 1884, Nikola Tesla boarded a ship to America. His luggage was stolen during the voyage, leaving him nearly penniless when he arrived. But he stepped onto the streets of New York with something far more valuable than possessions. He carried a vision of the future, and he carried the invention that would make it possible. New York in the late 19th century was a city caught between eras. Gas lamps still lit many streets, but electric lights were beginning to appear, glowing softly through the night like small promises of a new age. Factories roared, carriages rattled over cobblestones, and everywhere, people hurried toward the possibilities of modern life. Tesla walked straight to Thomas Edison's workshop. He was thin, elegant, and determined. He introduced himself quietly, handing Edison the letter of recommendation that described him as a genius. Edison glanced at him skeptically. He preferred practical men, hands-on builders, relentless experimenters. Tesla, with his refined manners and theoretical brilliance, was everything Edison was not. And yet, Edison hired him. Tesla began improving Edison's direct current generators, working long hours, sometimes 20 hours a day. He redesigned motors, repaired systems, and solved complications that had plagued Edison's teams for months. According to Tesla, Edison promised him $50,000 if he could significantly improve the DC systems. Tesla delivered. But when he asked for the payment, Edison reportedly laughed and said, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor." Tesla quit immediately. The months that followed were harsh. The man who would later electrify the world now dug ditches in the streets of New York for $2 a day. He worked in mud and cold, his hands blistered, his clothes worn. At night, he returned to a small rented room and sketched inventions by candlelight, refusing to let poverty extinguish his vision. Then, in 1887, everything changed. Two businessmen, impressed by Tesla's intelligence and determination, offered to fund his work. They helped him establish the Tesla Electric Company and provided a laboratory where he finally had the tools and freedom to build the machines he had envisioned in his mind for years. There, in that laboratory, Tesla created the first practical alternating current motor. Elegant, silent, efficient. A machine that did not spark, did not burn out, did not fight against its own design. It simply turned, smoothly, perfectly, driven by the principle Tesla had discovered in Budapest. In May 1888, Tesla presented his AC system to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. The audience listened in stunned silence as he described a future in which power could be transmitted over great distances with minimal loss. A future in which entire cities could be powered from a single source, a waterfall, a turbine, a distant generator. Among the listeners was a representative of George Westinghouse. George Westinghouse was a visionary industrialist, a man who recognized genius when it stood in front of him. After Tesla's lecture, Westinghouse approached him with an offer that would permanently alter the course of electrical history. He purchased Tesla's patents for alternating current. He offered him a salary, stock, and generous royalties. If the royalties had been honored in full, Tesla would have become one of the wealthiest men on Earth. Together, Tesla and Westinghouse began building the AC electrical system that would power the modern world. But not everyone welcomed this revolution. Thomas Edison, whose empire depended on direct current, launched a fierce campaign to discredit alternating current. He claimed AC was dangerous, unpredictable, lethal. Demonstrations were held in which animals were electrocuted using alternating current to terrify the public. Newspapers published sensational warnings. Fear spread. This battle became known as the War of the Currents. Tesla responded not with fear, but with demonstration. He conducted public experiments showing that high-frequency AC could pass safely through the human body. He lit lamps in his hands without wires. He stood before audiences surrounded by arcs of electricity, calm and dignified, as though conversing with the lightning itself. The turning point came in 1893, when the organizers of the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago needed a company to illuminate the fairgrounds. Edison bid with direct current. Westinghouse bid with alternating current, powered by Tesla's designs. AC won. When the fair opened, more than 100,000 lamps glowed across the grounds, illuminating buildings, fountains, and pathways with a soft, steady radiance that seemed almost magical. Millions of visitors walked beneath the lights, witnessing the dawn of a new electrical age. But the greatest triumph was yet to come, harnessing the power of Niagara Falls. Engineers around the world had dreamed of turning the mighty waterfall into electricity. In 1895, Tesla's system was chosen to make that dream reality. When the first power station began transmitting electricity to Buffalo, over 20 miles away, it proved beyond doubt that alternating current was the future. AC had won the war. Yet Tesla's personal victory came at a cost. Westinghouse Electric faced severe financial strain. The royalty agreement with Tesla became an impossible burden. Westinghouse, honorably and reluctantly, explained the situation. In a moment that would echo through history, Tesla tore up the contract. He released Westinghouse from the obligation, giving up a fortune that would have made him one of the richest men alive. He did it because he believed in the future of his invention. He did it for the world. With the war of the currents behind him, Tesla entered one of the most creative and visionary periods of his life. He had proven that alternating current could power the world, but his mind was already moving beyond wires, beyond generators, beyond anything the industrial age could comprehend. Tesla wanted to understand the hidden rhythms of nature, frequencies, vibrations, invisible forces that pulsed through the air and the earth itself. He believed that if he could tune into these natural harmonies, he could unlock new forms of energy and communication. He moved into a new laboratory on Houston Street in New York, where he began experimenting with high-frequency currents. At night, passers-by would see strange glows through the windows, circles of light, bursts of electric arcs, lamps glowing without wires. Inside, Tesla worked alone in near silence, adjusting coils and resonant circuits with the precision of a musician tuning an instrument. Journalists visited the lab and watched in amazement as he held glass tubes that lit up in his hands, powered only by invisible fields. He spoke of a future in which people could light their homes without wires, communicate across the world instantly, and draw energy directly from the earth. To many, it sounded like fantasy. To Tesla, it was simply the direction nature was already pointing toward. But Tesla wanted more space, more sky, more ground, more isolation. He needed a place where he could generate massive electrical discharges without disturbing an entire city. And so, in 1899, he traveled to Colorado Springs, a quiet town at the edge of the Rocky Mountains. In Colorado, Tesla built a laboratory unlike anything that had ever existed. It housed a coil so large and powerful that when activated, lightning bolts over 100 feet long erupted from the roof. Residents miles away could hear the crackling thunder of his experiments. Light bulbs buried in the ground lit up without wires. Horses running past would spark when their hooves struck the earth. Tesla was studying something profound, the Earth's electrical resonance. He believed the planet itself could conduct energy over vast distances if stimulated at the right frequency. In his notebooks, he wrote about sending power through the ground, creating standing waves that could transmit electricity anywhere on Earth. Late one night, after a long series of experiments, Tesla claimed he detected rhythmic signals coming from the sky. He believed they were of intelligent origin, perhaps from another planet. Whether these signals were atmospheric noise, equipment interference, or something more mysterious remains unknown. But Tesla believed deeply that he had heard voices beyond Earth. His time in Colorado Springs was intensely productive. He filled notebooks with diagrams and equations, many of which would not be fully understood for decades. But he knew his work there was only the beginning. He had glimpsed a future in which wireless communication and wireless energy were not dreams, but inevitabilities. When Tesla returned to New York in 1900, he carried with him the seeds of his most ambitious project yet. He approached financiers, speaking of a global wireless system that could transmit both information and power to any point on the planet. He described a world connected by invisible currents, where energy flowed freely like air. One man listened, J. P. Morgan. Morgan agreed to fund the beginning of Tesla's vision. It was not enough money to build everything Tesla imagined, but it was enough to begin construction on what would become one of the most iconic and tragic structures in scientific history. Wardenclyffe Tower. Wardenclyffe Tower rose on the quiet shores of Long Island like a structure from another world. 187 feet tall, crowned with a giant copper dome, it looked both futuristic and strangely ancient, a lighthouse for invisible waves, a monument to ambition. Tesla envisioned Wardenclyffe not merely as a radio station, but as the heart of a global wireless network. He believed one tower could transmit messages, music, images, and even electrical power across continents. Beneath the tower, Tesla built deep shafts lined with iron pipes, extending far into the Earth to form a direct connection with the planet's conductive layers. Every detail reflected his understanding that the Earth itself was part of the system. But while Tesla dreamed of worldwide transmission, Morgan expected something simpler: wireless telegraphy that could compete with Guglielmo Marconi. When Tesla revealed that his true goal was wireless power, free, limitless, and unmonetizable, Morgan grew suspicious. Around the same time, Marconi succeeded in sending the first transatlantic radio signal. It was a simple Morse letter, just an S, but the symbolic victory was immense. The world celebrated Marconi, not realizing that his system relied heavily on Tesla's earlier patents. Tesla was furious. He warned that Marconi was simply using 17 of my patents, but the world did not listen. Morgan, uninterested in funding a system he could not meter, refused to provide more money. Without additional investment, construction on Wardenclyffe slowed, then halted. Tesla tried to find new backers, but by then newspapers were portraying him as eccentric, unpredictable, a dreamer detached from reality. Investors turned away. By 1905, Wardenclyffe was silent. Tesla was forced to release his workers. The tower stood unfinished, a massive skeleton overlooking the sea. At night, Tesla would visit the site alone, walking beneath the copper dome, touching the wooden beams, imagining what might have been. Wardenclyffe was Tesla's greatest dream, and his greatest heartbreak. He had envisioned a world where energy flowed freely to all, where communication transcended borders, where humanity was united through technology. But the world was not ready for such a vision. Not financially, not politically, not philosophically. The tower remained unused for years, a monument to unrealized potential. In 1917, during World War I, it was demolished and sold for scrap, out of fear it could be used as a German transmitter. Tesla was living in a small hotel room when he heard the news. He said nothing. A lifetime of dreams had collapsed into silence. But Tesla did not stop dreaming. Even as his financial situation deteriorated, he continued working on new ideas: turbines, wireless lighting, global communication systems, machines that could harness cosmic rays. Some ideas were far ahead of their time, others were speculative visions he lacked the resources to build. Yet his imagination never dimmed. In the years that followed, Tesla's life shifted from the laboratories of New York to the quiet hotel rooms where he lived surrounded by notebooks, calculations, and pigeons. As Tesla aged, his world grew quieter. He moved from hotel to hotel in New York City, carrying only a few belongings and countless notebooks filled with inventions he could no longer afford to build. He dressed impeccably, dark suit, polished shoes, neatly combed hair, maintaining the dignity of a man who had once electrified the world. But internally, he drifted further into solitude. Each morning, Tesla walked to Bryant Park or nearby squares to feed pigeons. He spoke to them softly, memorizing their behavior, giving names to the ones he recognized. Among them was a white pigeon that visited his window regularly. Tesla formed a deep emotional bond with her. He said she brought him comfort and that he understood her in ways he could not understand people. The pigeon became a symbol of purity and companionship in the final years of his life. Tesla once told a friend, "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman." When she grew ill, Tesla spent money he did not have on medicines and special care. When she died, something in him broke. He said that the light in his life had gone out. Yet even then, his mind remained active. He continued proposing new theories: wireless energy transmission, earthquake machines, methods to photograph thoughts, improvements to aviation, and even a particle beam weapon he called a peace ray. Some ideas were grounded in real physics. Others were speculative visions born from decades of thinking beyond the boundaries of conventional science. In his late 70s and early 80s, Tesla gave occasional interviews. Journalists described him as soft-spoken, articulate, and still intensely passionate about the future. He lamented that the world had not embraced the full potential of electricity. He believed humanity was just beginning to understand the power hidden within energy and frequency. Financially, however, he struggled deeply. His hotel bills were often paid by wealthy admirers or by companies that felt indebted to him. The management of the Hotel New Yorker, where he lived in his final decade, allowed him to stay even when he could no longer pay. They recognized that he was not an ordinary guest. He was a man whose inventions powered the very lights above their heads. Tesla continued working until the end. On January 7, 1943, he died alone in his room at the Hotel New Yorker. He was 86 years old. A maid found him lying peacefully on the bed, as though he had drifted into a final, gentle sleep. News of his death spread quickly. Scientists, engineers, and inventors paid tribute. Newspapers published long articles recounting his achievements. But there was also a quiet sadness in the air, a recognition that the world had not fully understood him, that many of his dreams had gone unrealized, and that genius like his rarely finds peace. After Tesla's death, the U.S. government seized his papers, worried that some of his ideas might have military value. Investigators studied his notes, searching for secrets, especially anything related to the death ray he had described. Eventually, they concluded that the materials contained no immediate threat, and most of his documents were returned to his family. They now reside in the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. In the years following his passing, Tesla's legacy faded from public memory. Edison was celebrated as the father of electricity. Marconi received praise for the invention of radio. Tesla was mentioned only occasionally, often as an eccentric inventor who never fulfilled his own potential. His brilliance was overshadowed by the commercial success of others. But time has a way of correcting the record. As historians and scientists revisited the past, they discovered how deeply Tesla's ideas had influenced modern technology. His patents formed the foundation of radio, AC power, wireless transmission, robotics, and resonant circuits. His writings contained insights into renewable energy, global communication, and frequencies long before these concepts entered the mainstream. By the late 20th century, Tesla was reborn in the public imagination. Books were written, documentaries produced. His name appeared in classrooms, scientific journals, and popular culture. He became a symbol of the misunderstood genius, an icon of innovation, creativity, and limitless possibility. A unit of magnetic measurement was named after him, the Tesla. And in 2003, an electric car company chose his name to honor the man whose work made modern electric motors possible. Today, the name Tesla echoes around the world as a reminder of the inventor who once dreamed of a planet powered by clean, abundant energy. But beyond the fame, beyond the equations and the inventions, lies something deeper, the spirit of Tesla's vision. He believed that science should serve humanity, that energy should be accessible to all, that knowledge should be shared. He believed in a world united by technology, not divided by it. His life was filled with struggle, sacrifice, and isolation. But his dreams were vast, compassionate, and profoundly human. He imagined a future in which technology lifted people out of poverty, connected nations, and illuminated even the darkest corners of the world. Today, we live in a world shaped by his ideas. Every electric motor, every wireless signal, every resonance-based technology carries a piece of Tesla's legacy. His work powers our homes, our devices, our cities. The electrical age he helped create continues to expand in ways he foresaw, and in ways he never could have imagined. And yet, perhaps the most beautiful part of Tesla's story is not the inventions he completed, but the visions he never let go of. Even when the world doubted him, even when money ran out, even when isolation closed around him, he never stopped believing in a brighter future. His dreams became the dreams of generations. His future became our present. When we look back on Tesla's life, it is tempting to see it as a sequence of inventions, discoveries, and conflicts. But beneath those events lies a deeper story, one of a man navigating the vast terrain of his own imagination. Tesla lived in two worlds, the world of machines, laboratories, and patents, and the world of visions, dreams, and possibilities that only he could see. He often spoke of the universe as if it were a living organism, filled with currents, pulses, and invisible harmonies. He believed that everything, light, sound, matter, even thought, was connected through frequency. To him, the cosmos was not chaotic but musical. and he spent his life trying to tune himself to that music. In quiet moments, he would describe memories of his childhood, the sound of water flowing through mountain streams, the shimmering light of storms over the hills, the gentle rhythm of his mother's loom. These memories were not simply recollections, they were inspirations. He saw patterns everywhere. He sensed relationships that others missed. Nature was his first and perhaps greatest teacher. Tesla often worked in silence. He rarely made sketches because he believed the clearest drawings were the ones made in the mind. He said that once he envisioned a machine completely, he could run it internally, like an engineer testing a blueprint. If a part vibrated incorrectly, he would feel it. If a gear wore down, he would see it. His mind was both workshop and testing ground. This internal world also brought him loneliness. He admitted many times that he struggled to connect with people. His thoughts moved quickly, too quickly for ordinary conversation. And the discipline required by his obsessions isolated him further. Yet he never seemed bitter about this distance. He accepted it as the price of seeing what others could not. As Tesla grew older, he spent more time reflecting on humanity's future. He believed deeply that people were capable of more compassion, more understanding, more harmony. Technology, he said, would not simply advance machines, it would advance the human spirit. He imagined a future where nations shared energy freely, where communication bridged cultures, where science became a universal language of peace. He believed that conflict came from scarcity. Remove scarcity, he argued, and peace would follow. In his writings, Tesla spoke often of light. Light as energy, light as knowledge, light as a path forward. He believed that humanity was moving slowly toward a brighter age, even if the journey was difficult. The present is theirs, he wrote. The future, for which I have really worked, is mine. But he meant something more, that the future belongs to all who work not for themselves but for the world. Tesla's final years were quiet, spent in small hotel rooms, speaking softly to the pigeons that visited his windowsill. But even then, in the silence, he carried the same inner light that had guided him throughout his life. The storms of his childhood, the visions of his youth, the triumphs and tragedies of his career, all blended into a gentle, reflective peace. He had given everything he could to the world. And in his own way, he knew that the world would eventually understand. When we consider the story of Nikola Tesla, it is natural to focus on the scientific achievements. But to truly understand his journey, we must also understand the era in which he lived. Tesla was born into a world lit by candles and oil lamps. He grew up in a time when travel was slow, communication limited, and the night sky untouched by artificial light. By the time he reached adulthood, the world was transforming. Steam engines reshaped industry. Telegraph lines covered continents. Cities grew. Trains, factories, and machines filled the landscape. Yet even amid these advances, electricity remained mysterious, difficult to control, and mostly inaccessible to ordinary people. Tesla saw electricity not as a luxury but as a fundamental force, something as natural and essential as air or water. He believed that energy should flow freely to all people, regardless of wealth or geography. This belief shaped his entire life. It shaped his inventions, his dreams, and his sacrifices. Throughout his career, Tesla often found himself in conflict with the financial realities of his time. Investors wanted profitable inventions. Corporations wanted control. Patents became weapons in an economic battlefield. And yet Tesla continued to imagine technologies that could not easily be monetized: wireless power, global communication, free energy drawn from the earth. He once said that the greatest reward for an inventor was not wealth, but the satisfaction of seeing an idea brought to life. For Tesla, creation was its own form of joy. He pursued ideas not because they would make him rich, but because they revealed something beautiful about the universe. Even in failure, Tesla found meaning. Wardenclyffe, though never completed, represented the purest expression of his vision, a world connected by invisible networks of energy. He believed that humanity would someday achieve such a system, even if he would not live to see it. The truth is that Tesla thought not in decades, but in centuries. He knew his ideas were seeds, ones that future generations would cultivate. Today, when wireless communication spans the globe, when electric motors drive vehicles, when energy research explores new resonant technologies, we are living inside the world Tesla envisioned. He imagined us, even if he did not know our names. He imagined our world, even if he could not foresee every detail. And he believed that the story of humanity was moving steadily toward greater understanding, connection, and illumination. As we reflect on his life, we are reminded that progress is rarely linear. It rises, falls, and rises again. It is shaped not only by success but by perseverance. And few people embodied perseverance as completely as Nikola Tesla. As the night deepens and we return to Tesla's final days, the pace of his story grows softer. The noise of laboratories fades. The sparks of experimentation grow dim. What remains is a sense of quiet reflection, as though Tesla himself were guiding us gently through the last chapters of his life. In his room at the Hotel New Yorker, Tesla spent hours writing, thinking, and observing the world outside his window. He watched the movement of clouds, the flight of birds, the slow passing of time. Even in solitude, he remained deeply connected to nature. He believed that nature held every answer, every law, every secret, every possibility. To him, studying the world was not just scientific work, it was a form of meditation. He wrote that every force in the universe, no matter how complex, could be understood through careful observation and intuition. In these quiet years, Tesla often revisited memories from his childhood. He remembered the storms over Smiljan, the gentle hum of his mother's tools, the warmth of his family's home. He remembered the joy of discovery, the early fascination with electricity, the first sparks of imagination that would ignite a lifetime of invention. He seemed to recognize that his journey had been guided not only by intellect, but by something softer, something like wonder. Tesla never stopped believing in the goodness of humanity. He believed that knowledge brought compassion, and that technology, when used wisely, could elevate the human condition. He hoped that future generations would use his discoveries not for conflict, but for peace. And in many ways, his hope became reality. Today, the world is illuminated by the very system Tesla envisioned. Communication travels across the planet in an instant. Wireless technology connects people across oceans. The principles he discovered live in every corner of modern life. As we reflect on his legacy, we feel a sense of gratitude, not only for the inventions that power our world, but for the dream of a brighter future that continues to guide us. Tesla once wrote that every person carries a spark of imagination, a potential waiting to be awakened. His life reminds us that even in solitude, even in adversity, the human mind can reach extraordinary heights. And as we let his story settle gently into the quiet of the night, we are reminded that the future he imagined, one filled with light, knowledge, and connection, still lies before us, waiting to be shaped. Tesla's journey may have ended, but his dream continues. And so, as our long journey through the life of Nikola Tesla comes to a close, we drift into a softer rhythm, letting the details dissolve into a calm, reflective stillness. Tesla's life, filled with brilliance and struggle, triumph and sorrow, innovation and solitude, becomes a gentle tapestry of light and shadow. He was a man who walked between worlds, between the visible and the invisible, the known and the unknown. He followed the currents of his imagination wherever they led, even when the world could not follow with him. He believed that every idea carried a purpose, every experiment revealed a truth, and every spark of inspiration held the possibility of reshaping the future. Tonight, as you settle into rest, you may feel the presence of Tesla's quiet determination, the way he listened to the world around him, the way he trusted the language of nature, the way he held on to his visions even when they seemed impossible. His life reminds us that dreams are not fragile, they are guiding lights, waiting for the right moment to illuminate the path ahead. As the night deepens, imagine the soft glow of Tesla's coils, the gentle hum of energy filling the air, the peaceful rhythm of a world connected by invisible threads of light. Imagine the possibilities he saw, the futures he believed in, the harmony he hoped humanity would one day achieve. Let his story become a quiet companion as you rest. Let it settle like a warm blanket of inspiration, reminding you that every great idea begins in the stillness of the mind, that every spark can grow into something extraordinary, and that the future, as Tesla said, belongs to those who truly work for it. Now, breathe slowly. Let your thoughts drift. Let the quiet settle around you like a gentle night sky. The story of Nikola Tesla is not just a tale of invention. It is a lullaby of hope, imagination, and endless possibility. And with that, we close this journey. May the night bring you rest, and may the dreams ahead shine brightly with the light of new ideas. Good night.